Tell me about your week. What's going on besides dog sitting?
Besides dog sitting for my boss at the moment, I have a reshoot day on Sunday.
For that 6 day shoot, the lifetime thing?
Yeah, surprise, surprise that they're gonna need an extra day. It's already 1/6 the whole shoot,
Are
and
these
then
scenes that you've already shot, or
they are new scenes added in.
because they figured out that they needed more stuff, or during the edit?
I guess so. I mean, the director, like, I did things similar to that last time. I think he just so run and gun that if like something's not working, he's just like, I'll just add this scene, make it make more sense.
Cool.
And then I also have like I was talking to my dad about stuff today about producing movies and stuff, and it reminded me of you. And I said, no, this is like really interesting information because like my directing partner on the podcast, like we're always talking about like producing and stuff. So I don't know. That happened. And then
Wait, hold up. So you're talking to your dad about like producing, or what about?
yeah, about how to allocate funds.
Bro, please enlighten us.
Right? He was actually talking about my uncle Jimmy did a play, a musical that he created, and it was really good, by the way. And like they filmed it all in the hopes to promote it. And anyway, they were gonna try to do big things with it, and I was just like, "What happened to it?" My dad's just like, "Oh," like wouldn't give me a straight answer. I'm like, "No, it's interesting because for a producing standpoint, I'm curious, like, what's the best way to use money with certain things."
Right.
Anyway, it ended up probably not being the most pertinent to your situations, but um,
I mean,
uh,
every film is like a puzzle, and every experience producing is going to be different. It's weird. And sometimes what the moves you're making you think are productive in the moment, but it's actually just like you're just making a wrong turn.
a lost cause.
That's interesting though. And what else? What else is going on?
Um,
I mean, when it comes to your reshoots, how many scenes are you doing? Is it a ton of dialogue?
3 scenes. Um, they're all back and forths of yeah, they decided to add like a scene of 2 scenes with me and this character, the real estate agent who I haven't had scenes with before. And there's a lot of my scenes prior where I reference the real estate agent and say, "Oh yeah, she got me this apartment and she did this and she did that." Now you're gonna see me with the real estate agent,
Cool.
and actually I end up killing her. I'm sorry, and I have another kill scene. And then
Are they keeping the same release, or are they pushing it out?
I haven't been told, but I the way that they do things, like I wouldn't be surprised if it has no effect on it, which we like.
That's wild.
I know it's so alternate to what we're used to hearing in the film industry.
The crazy thing is he's making a shit ton of movies. He's making money. He's making a living, and like that's living the dream. So he figured it out. He's got the team of investors. He figured it out.
Yeah, he's definitely got something that's hard to get. So you got to give him credit. But anyway, so we'll come back to me. What have you been up to?
I've been writing a lot, getting back in the swing of that. I'm meeting with one of my former bosses at Blumhouse in April. And apart from the one script I've got that I'm really stoked about, that's really strong, I'm now writing the second script. So I'm going to have two strong pitches. They're going to be ready to go in April. So that's got all my focus. And then, bro, this has been a constant back and forth. And we talk about this shit all the fucking time. But here's how it's different this time, okay? First of all, I'm going to finish the script. So that's going to take me out to April. But after that, I'm not going to want to I'm not going to want to write like a third strong script. You know what I mean? I want to shoot some shit. So I'm going to try to get this stuff set up, these features set up, And this second one that I'm writing now, it's definitely in the realm of like, if Blumhouse doesn't take it, if I don't get big players involved, I'll be able to shoot it for like 100, 150K. So that's probably going to be my main focus, as far as getting the proper investments in, getting it from script all the way through release, because that experience of actually getting a film made and getting it distributed and going through that whole process, I'm going to learn so much.
I guess. Um, the only
Yes.
well, the only thing that I want to bring up is
Yeah.
like process is good, but there's a thing that Thomas Lennon, my favorite comedian, he wrote that book on writing, said with his first thing, and he's fucking right, and it's so important now. Write something and make something as if you were making the best movie ever. Like there is no process involved. No one gives a shit about process. Do it for the results.
Mhm. I
You know?
swear, I swear, this script, it's the perfect like intersection between those two things. It is a script that I'm like, I'm so fucking stoked about, but I was also intentional at the same time of like, yes, it's the best script I've ever written, but also intentional in terms of it is these two locations, it's few characters, and it's scary as fuck. And I feel like it's high concept. Do you know what's crazy, bro? And I want to hear your writing process, but what I've learned about myself is like the most labor intensive part of it isn't the writing of it. And that's the issue that I had starting out, where I'd rush to get the script finished and I'd be like, let me get to 90, let me get to 90. And yeah, I would have a finished script, but it doesn't go anywhere. I read it back and I'm like, fuck, this sucks. Or like, this is good, but it's not great. And what I've learned is, for me, like 90% of the process is just like building up the story and then stripping away everything that doesn't work and then building up another part, stripping it away. So like I've been cycling through in this process, in this just conceptual stage, I've cycled through like hundreds of different angles of where this thing could go. And like you go down this one road and then you realize, oh, this doesn't logically make sense. It's just about filling in all the holes. So by the time that the audience sees the film, they're like, like this is the most standard thing of them just seeing and being like, yeah, but like this, the middle was kind of boring, or like this part didn't make sense logically. And so for me, like the best horror is taking a crazy concept and then grounding it so that every aspect of it feels like it could happen. And that's the longest, most labor intensive part, but that's the stage that I'm in now, and I'm almost out of the weeds of that. I've almost got the whole thing mapped out.
Gotcha. I don't necessarily think that's like differentiating though, right? You're saying that, so your point is that like coming up with the actual direction you're going to go in and the real concept, basically an outline, but like a strong outline that
Yeah.
you're in is maybe even tougher than the actual screenplay writing of it.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And also the concept thing, that's what's going to make people want to see the film. Like how well it's written. At the end of the day, it's just a blueprint for what you see on the screen. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's important in terms of the reader liking it and moving it up to their boss and it getting greenlit. But at the end of the day, the thing the audience cares about, the way you're going to get the money, all this shit, the way you can innovate, it all comes down to the concept.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't dispute that. It's funny. My dad obviously for the sequel to 7 Days of Vegas just did all that,
Yeah.
and coming up with the outline super important.
Yeah.
Super, like you just said, like having to go through in your head all the different options and coming up with it, and then making decisions, and then like you said, the actual like details of the scene are it kind of yeah, debatably can come easier depending on the subject matter and stuff. But obviously, all of it is just a component. And it's
How,
all tough. Um,
yeah.
also, but my dad and I are talking about another movie. That is like something that I've experienced in my life. It's really funny, and and we're just exploring now like all the different options of directions to go in. And like I wouldn't say that's necessarily hard, but it's definitely something.
Yeah, I mean that's cool, bro. It's another comedy.
Yeah. Like what what comes to mind? I mean, we have the concept of the subject matter, and this would be more like kind of a dramedy.
I think the hardest part for me is when you get excited about an idea or a way that the thing can go, and then you look at that same idea the next day and you're like, oh, this is actually shittier than I thought. Do you ever come up against that? Or is it the opposite where like you get excited about something and then the next day you're like, oh, this is still dope?
It always depends, right? But lately, yeah, I've looked at some of my notes of stuff that I've come up with, and generally, when I look back on it, I'm actually pretty impressed. Like you're always just kind of impressed that there's like,
I'm jealous. I would love that. Everything
yeah,
I look back on, man, fuck yeah. I'm a
yeah,
G. Yeah.
there's like, or just like that's something to go off of. That just saved me work. Wow, I'm happy that there's something that where I don't have to
Not
start
a
from scratch.
blank page. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're saying for your stuff a lot of times, like you go back and you're just like, damn it, that epiphany was for nothing.
Yeah, bro. But because I go through that so much, when it clicks and I look back and or I don't even have to look back. When it's so good and I feel that it's good enough, then I can instantly think of what it is, or like I know the log line straight away. And then when I tell people, I don't see their soul leave their eyes, you know? It's like that's how you know you're onto something. But bro, I'm jealous. I wish for the majority of the stuff. I would say like maybe 10%. Literally, I look back on and I'm like, fuck yeah. The other 90, it just takes me a while to just key into that because horror is really difficult. I mean, comedy is equally as hard. It's taking like a crazy situation and then grounding it.
Right. I mean, or unless it's not grounded, right? If it's supernatural and stuff, but even then,
Yeah, but even so, if it's supernatural, you still got to have like grounded characters you can relate to because otherwise it's going to be too up in the air. Like if like let's take horror. If it's a crazy supernatural thing, you got to first care about the characters. You got to be able to relate to them and what they're going through, what their real world problems are. And then once you got that, then you're hooked in for the ride. And then it's like this supernatural shit happens and you're like, fuck. Otherwise, you're just kind of, it's like a weird disconnect.
debatably, like I think, like yeah, that's obviously what you shoot for, and but a lot of those like horror porn movies that kind of just like broke through and stuff have super one-dimensional characters and stuff.
Totally. But those are always going to be B films, right? Like you're never
That
going to see, they're not going to be like critically acclaimed, widely revered, maybe
yeah,
cult classics, but
yeah,
that's about it.
or like successes, but maybe more because of uh the idea, like the crux of the horror tends to be like even like Disturbia is a bad example, but like
That's a great movie. I fucking
right,
love
that's
Disturbia.
just flat out a great movie.
Yeah,
And
what is it?
I don't know, for something like The Purge or something like that, concept alone is like pretty
It's
badass.
so fucking strong. And do you
Right?
know how the guy came up with it?
How?
They were in they were in their car, him and his wife. And he was 45 at the time or something. He maybe had a couple films he made, but nothing big. And this car just swerves and cuts him off, and he's just being a dick. And the wife goes, man, if there was just one day where like murder was legal. And that was the hook. And he took that, and then the purge happened. But yeah, bro, those
That's,
concepts too.
that's the same thing as Larry David with like when something happens in real life and something's just like kind of bad, and he's thinking like, well, I'm not going to do this because it's real life and we have society to uphold. But like, what if
My
I act
character.
and that's big in the TV show?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that show. Uh, yeah, man. That I mean, those concepts are so rare. When you got something that is like that high concept. And we've talked about high concept before. Like, what does that mean? To me, high concept is just like an idea that when you hear it, you're like, why the fuck has this not been a movie before?
That's good concept though. That's just like a good concept. If I'm correct, I think high concept itself means something specific. Like it's kind of talking about something that's kind of uh ethereal and hard to wrap your mind around.
High concept.
Yeah.
That I mean, I feel like that's more kind of elevated horror, like like elevated highbrow to me. And again, bro, these definitions, like, who the fuck knows?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you
We don't need to
know,
go depth it
yeah,
about.
but I mean, it is apples and oranges, whatever. But yeah, bro, those ideas are so few and far between. But like, I also think you bringing up the cult classic stuff, like the one-dimensional characters, we all got into this because we saw films that we loved and we want to emulate that. And at least on my end, I see stuff like Hereditary and Talk to Me and Midsommar and Us and Get Out. Those are the films that I'm like, yeah. Some people get into it for more like the B stuff, and then that's the track that they take. For you, what were the films that inspired you? And do you feel like those are the types of stuff that you want to be a part of?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question, man. That was a good list you just named. And I'm just thinking back to like Get Out, and that definitely, yeah, those characters were interesting, different, and fully fleshed out. And the horror was high concept by the definition of that, like, hey, it's kind of a crazy concept. Um, so that's dude, we can go into our favorite films in general. But my movie that made me think about acting legitimately. Well, so I have a bunch, man. My movies were that I like was introduced to filmmaking and real like movies that were because I was obsessed over movies when I was a super little kid with like movies like Waterworld with Kevin Costner, Blade, the vampire movie with Wesley Snipes. I used to beg my parents to let me watch those movies, and I'd watch them over 100 times, and I knew all the actors' names, everything and stuff. But that's not as much. That's
Those
more
are
just
hot takes, bro. I've
yeah,
never even heard of those movies.
dude. Indian in the cover was another one. Um, nonetheless, afterwards, my dad always was telling me his favorite movies were Goodfellas and Casino, and I remember watching Goodfellas for the first time, and that was like what was so cool about it. I mean, it just made you want to go to that place, and it just showed like how it's just it made you want to be like Italian and be in the small town in New York and see these people that were like, yeah, they were crooks and they were bad, but they had charm and they had really good values in some ways, and they were kind of against the system. They were just trying to, make an extra buck. So it was just really good, interesting storytelling that was like relatable. And the best music in that movie, the best score, the best it was these actors that I loved, and seeing them in this super talk about characters, multidimensional, and it was just incredible. And then Casino in its own right, another true story about how the mafia ran Vegas, and seeing how uh same thing with the characters. I mean, this guy was genius in a way, this Jewish top bookie for the mafia in Chicago, and then he gets given a giant casino and multiple, and how he runs it the same way with diligence, and he handicaps every little thing and every little person in his lives. But then, of course, when it comes to his love life, he takes a gamble that he can't win. That's the pitch. um, those are those, and I'll try to keep this all short. Um, then legitimately the movie that made me like actually want oh shit, there's a few in between. The movies in between were Seth Rogen's movies, Knocked Up, Super Bad, Pineapple Express.
Super bad and Pineapple.
When I saw those, I was like, A, they're just, I can't stop laughing. And then B, I was like, I wouldn't mind just being like Seth Rogen, like a screenwriter, a comedian, someone
Wow,
who makes
bro. Wow.
um
That's wait, bro. That's crazy that you say that because Seth Rogen has he almost reminds me. I know they're completely like different in terms of their approach and the types of films they come out with, but like him and Adam Sandler to me have scoped out their own universe. Like within, like, yeah, there's the Hollywood system, but both
Right.
of them are their own like empire. And they have such a signature like touch when it comes to the films that they put out. And bro,
I know.
Seth Rogen is like one of I really like him because he comes off as really humble, but he is one of the most respected, like high, like most in demand people in Hollywood. And it's like he's still like, yeah, he's still like Seth.
Who knows the insides, but to me, actually, he's come off a bit more since he made the bridge the gap, like Jonah Hill, from comedy to dramatic films and being Academy Award movies like the Steve Jobs movie and a few other things. He was just in Dumb Money, which is this movie about the GameStop short and stuff that I was in. He's gotten a bit uh kind of
Is that right?
highfalutin and like just serious and snobby. Um, but
Bro, when you get to that place, I'm gonna check you. That's not happening.
the
I'm
only
seeing
one,
it now. That's not happening.
right? All right. That being said, here's my two other things that impacted me big time. So then there was Schindler's List, which is another movie that there was a few. So now then I went on a tirade of like movies that my family loved as influential movies to them. And there's a few. There's Schindler's List, and I saw the guy that played the villain in Schindler's List, who is nominated for the Academy Award. This actor named Ralph Fiennes. He played the real Nazi Almond Goat, who he was known as being super evil, but they captured the humanity in him. And I didn't really know it, but there was a moment that I had with my dad where I was like, I watched Schindler's List by myself, and I told him, I'm like, he didn't tell me anything about it. And I'm like, the guy that played the villain, he was kind of like, yeah, he was really bad and horrible and would freak out and stuff. And it was very unpredictable, which was showed true evil. But also, there's a couple of iconic scenes which showed his kind of charm and his business know-how. And he related to Oscar Schindler by telling him, like, oh, I know what you're going through as a businessman because, I've dealt with it. I've dealt with the fence makers, the construction people, this, that. It's horrible, horrible. So what you want is, your own thing, your own camp, and I'm going to help you do that. And he gave Oscar Schindler shit, like legitimately. And it was just the tone of these scenes was different than any World War II movie I'd seen, where the Indiana Jones Nazis, the typical, just like
Right.
super one-dimensional,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
people. This was, in a lot of ways, he was a frat star. And there's a scene where Schindler points out, he loves the women, he loves good drinks, he loves this and that. And then the Jew that he works with, played by Ben Kingsley, says he just murdered like a child in front. It was just very,
Oh.
very shades of gray and beautiful. It was a great part. And Ray Fiennes is like a successful British theater actor, and I was like, that's why I want to go to theater schools, because Ray Fiennes seems like an actor that I want to be like, get these crazy roles that you bring humanity to them and stuff. But in retrospect, that was on the page, I think. But and then to wrap this up, there was the movie The Social Network, which on the surface is just known as the Facebook movie. But when I went into it, I didn't know anything other than that. And I watched it, and it was very Shakespearean. It could have been about anything, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, anything for subject matter, but it was really about these guys that, they get to this place in the world, Harvard, where they think everything's going to come easy because they get to Harvard. They're geniuses. They've been told, hey, you're not going to have any social life in high school, but you get there, you're going to get to Harvard, and then you're going to be in the haven, right? And they get there and they're still nerds. And they're not getting what they want. The one kid's trying to get into a fraternity, and like even that's tough. And so the other one is like, I'm gonna do this thing. I get this idea, who he stole from two other people basically, and he comes up with this idea, and it shakes the universe. And the feeling of running with that and the people that he feels like are falling behind,
Mm.
and acting to it. And then the backdrop of Harvard made me want to go there, and then hanging out in Palo Alto, and the Winklevoss brothers being these like blue blood New Englanders who were like pretentious, or like kind of, you want to punch them in the face, but at the same time like you understood why they were successful in so many ways and continue to be in real life. And then I saw the behind the scenes, the making of the Social Network, and every scene of that I thought was so entertaining. But which is my definition of a good movie. You want to be on the edge of your seat the whole time and want to know what happens next. And I saw the behind the scenes of that, and it was David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin.
Right,
And
right.
the making of that,
Well,
so rich with story. There's no time for acting technique. There's no time for any of that crap. It
right.
was just, you have to honor these real people and what was going on here, and bringing this all to life. And they did 100 takes of each scene, and I was like,
Fincher, yeah.
still one of the inspirations I have when I feel like dull and I want to get fired
Yes.
up. I find the
Yeah.
scenes feature of that. I watched it so many times, and
Yeah.
anyway, those are
Bro, those are great examples. And what you just said about when you're feeling dull and like not inspired, going back to that original source material that fired you up, that gets you, man. For me, like the quickest thing that I watch that just like gets me fired up is the trailer for the It movie, like the remake, just the way that it's laid out. Andy Muschietti, I mean, that guy fucking killed that. But anyway, that's besides the point. The actors that you brought up, I got to rewatch. First, Social Network didn't have a huge impact on me, but you brought it up multiple times. Um, I'll have to rewatch that, but also Schindler's List. That is something I saw it once in my life, and I was just focused on like the horror of like everything going on, but actually going like the deeper level of these weren't one-dimensional characters is huge. And I like that you brought up Ray Fiennes. Ray Fiennes is an actor that any role he's in, he's one of those actors that like you can't look away. Like he sucks out the air from every scene he's in. There's a level of, it's like, to me, it's like him, Jack Nicholson, that guy Jason Isaacs. Do you know who that is?
yeah, he's the best. He's the villain in Patriot. We were talking about that last time.
That's right. That's right. And I know him from the OA.
Right,
And Harry Potter too.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But
But
what you're about with Ray Fiennes, I at first tried to peg him too, because I was a huge fan in a few movies that he did. Another movie called Quiz Show, which was directed by Robert Redford. You see it?
I haven't, but The Menu is another great one that he's in.
I'm sure now, especially, he's kind of had like a bit of a resurgence for these big roles, and he's known as being like the best villain too. But
Yeah.
I was such a big fan of Ray Fiennes. I was like, what is it about him that? What does he bring to a role that's so good?
Right.
Is he just so relaxed? He's just so relaxed and seems thoughtful between everything that's happening. But I must say, so I saw him in a play in England. It was like everything I hoped for, because I knew he was considered the most proper trained actor in England, and went to RADA, and he'd done years at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and
What was the
won
play?
and he won a Tony Award for Hamlet on Broadway, um, which is like it's kind of like the swan song for any like great English actor, I suppose. So I saw him in a classical play in London when I was studying acting in England. I saw him in Henrik Ibsen's The Master Builder, where it was a classical text from the 1800s that that had been adapted by a modern writer, and he was supposed to be this giant business person that falls in love with a young girl. And the young girl was played by Sarah Snook, who's the girl in Succession. And dude, wasn't that good. Flat out wasn't that good.
His performance or the whole thing?
Whole thing. And the reviewers said the same thing.
Is that
And
because of the text or his everything?
everything, but someone else who like loves Ray Fiennes, one of my buddies, saw it and he said the same thing. And it's because I think the story sort of lacked something, but also like I was watching this play and I'm like, he's supposed to be the best theater actor. It looked like he was just going through the motions. It didn't really look like it didn't really seem like it was like happening. There wasn't that many sparks, like real life moments that were really charged. You weren't on the edge of your seat that much.
Right.
Which what a concept, is live theater. You're supposed to be like, the air is supposed to be taken out of the room.
Well, do you think it's easier to achieve that in a stage thing than like a film?
No, I don't think it's easier to achieve that in a stage thing, especially because
It's
they.
gotta be like bigger. It's weird, man, because you're not being natural. You're like playing out to the. I don't even know how you would pull that off. In
But
like,
it's funny. Great stage performances I've seen. It's like they forget their acting.
wow.
Acting style ends up actually not being such a thing. And I have seen great plays, and it's like they're just. It's just like you're watching like really cool life unfold in front of you. And for film, my answer is obviously I think film is going to provoke that a bit more because you have to make it seem real, at least for a drama in film. So like it's just so high pressure to get it right. Whereas in theater, you're able to get away with a lot more, maybe. But so I came to the conclusion that I actually think, despite popular content, and by the way, I heard by someone that saw the Hamlet that he won the Tony Award for 25 years ago, 30 years ago, they thought he wasn't that good in that either. And I've seen Ray Fiennes in a few plays since then on the webcast I watched like on TV, but I think he's just a great film actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why he's great is because he understands these characters and the stories really well. And he understands how to insert himself to make the best out of them by far. And he makes it seem like they're just like living. And he's funny too. And like and actually in retrospect, I think that's why he played the Nazi so well, is because he played him with humanity and he was kind of funny and he was charming. And same thing with, he was in Wes Anderson, a few of Wes Anderson's movies, but there was the Coen Brothers movie recently, um, about the Hollywood stuff in the early 1900s. Is called
Oh, I saw that.
Caesar.
Huh?
It was something Caesar, I think.
Yeah, bro.
And he played like a 1930s British director, very very proper and sort of a snob, and the actor he's working with isn't
Hail
really
Caesar.
Hail Caesar, and he was so funny and just understood that character, and so like I guess in real life he seems really soft spoken in interviews, but he seems to get material really well. Anyway, and I what it is, he gets it and he just makes the most out of it. He chops it up.
Yes, and that's something that you have control over. But as far as like the gravitas that we're talking about, do you think some of that is that like star quality or whatever, like just that untouchable kind of either you have it or don't? Or do you think it has everything to do with preparation?
It's a good question, man. I would be lying if that sort of X factor didn't have anything to do with it. But that being said, I think even Jack Nicholson, it is a disservice to tell other actors that you either have it or you don't, because
Right.
Jack Nicholson, who seems like the most person that brings himself to every character, he's doing all his little mannerisms. I still think he gets underneath the material so well
For
and
sure.
understands the part so well, the piece of the whole puzzle that he's playing and that he has to be, bring to life. And he's in those circumstances. And I think it's through being so invested in it, which isn't that hard necessarily, but I just think he's good at doing the job, that his himself shines through it. And I think there's a story on A Few Good Men where Jack Nicholson plays the military ringleader. You haven't seen that movie?
Of course I have.
Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, because I was gonna say you're a huge Jack Nicholson fan. That's one of my favorite performances of
Yeah,
his.
it's
You
amazing.
can handle the truth.
Unreal.
There's a story Rob Reiner, the director, tells where he said he was doing that scene. You can't handle the truth, Jack Nicholson, and it was the first take, and Nicholson was off camera. It was on Tom Cruise, but he had to be off camera and give that speech anyway. Pages and pages of dialogue. So Reiner had directed him to, tone it down because he's not on camera, or like he's new to, he had to do that, right? You don't have to go full mass
Yeah.
like when you're in that intense of a thing. Like save it up. And Nicholson is just belting it, balls to the wall every time.
Good take.
Take 4, take 5, take 6, and Rob Reiner goes, Jack, you're a big star. Like you don't have to, like save it for the camera. And he goes, Rob, I love acting. It's so rare that I get a good part. I just, I'm gonna let it fly. And that meant, the guy just knows what he's doing. At the end of the day, he's a puppet. He's a piece of the puzzle. He's a player for hire. He knew that part, and he wasn't going to go half. He was going to live it up in that part. It's role playing.
Rob is one of the best names that can come out of Jack Nicholson's mouth. Rob.
Rob.
It's so good, man. I got a story from The Departed too, where
please hold that thought. I want to go to the last thing. It's like one point
Go for it.
Even Joaquin Phoenix, who seems like the most method actor, brings himself. Because I'm always stressing this so much because I used to think like, oh, are they just themselves and they're kind of like that? Joaquin Phoenix, who seems so like such a method actor and everything. He says, why is he good at acting? Someone asked him, and he goes, and I was waiting to hear like, oh, because I've lived that, I've done that and everything, and the character is close to me. He's like, no, I think I just am really good at like absorbing the story and understanding what those characters would think. That's imagination work, buddy.
Wow.
And so that's again role playing.
That's all it is. On The Departed, Matt Damon just found himself alone in the room with Jack one time between takes, and Jack just turns to him. He's like, Matt, you want to know why I've had such a long career? And Matt's like, no, tell me. And he's like, because I'm a damn good writer. And Matt's like, of course, because you can't have that long of a career or be that great of an actor without really understanding what makes good writing and then how to leverage that to your acting. And that's all it is. It comes down to the basics. I love that you had that story about Joaquin. I mean, that's all this is.
And it's just to see those many different types of actors say the same thing, really, that I think that points to the North Star. But wait, so what do you think Nicholson meant? But it's possible he meant a few things. But was he writing his own stuff? Oh wow, we're done.
Look, bro, all that's to say is this was a good one. We're getting better at this.
I like it, that's for sure. But I also love like going into our favorite movies and stuff. We should do that again.
100%. We'll start that at the top of the next one, okay?
Great stuff, brother.
Always a good time. We'll see you next.
Sounds good, man. Peace. Bye.